Morgan Spurlock might just be the only person around who was launched into stardom by liver failure and a plummeting sex drive, but that's what happened in 2004. As you know, Morgan ate McDonald's and only McDonald's for 30 days.
I think I'm gonna have to go supersize.
And the effects of the golden arches on his body and mind were pretty scary. And of course, he captured that experience in that documentary, Super Size Me. A lot of Big Macs and an even bigger message. We have to question what corporations, governments, and industry are selling us.
McDonald's, fried chicken and a Pizza Hut.
And it was that audacity that ignited his later films. He traveled through the Middle East in the hopes of finding Osama bin Laden.
Yoo-hoo, Osama.
He explored how product placement influences what we buy, and he created a TV show where regular people spend a month living outside their comfort zone. He convinced a hunter to live with a vegan family, and even got a homophobe to move into a gay household.
If there was one thing I could go back and undo, it would definitely be last night.
What if my girlfriend, Alex, was actually my boyfriend, Alex?
Now Morgan's got a new kind of co-pro, his 4-year-old son, Laker. And as he strives to be an inspiration to his kid, Morgan got the chance to work with one of his own idols, Stan Lee, the creator of Spider-Man and the architect of the modern comic book. Together, they've teamed up on a new film called Comic-Con 4, A Fan's Hope. It's a celebration of the pop culture icons we all grew up with and the way we pass them down to our kids.
My wife's not too ecstatic about this whole toy collecting thing.
Please welcome back to the show, Morgan Spurlock. Good to see you again, man.
Good to see you. How you been?
Doing well, thanks. Good. This has got to be like a really, maybe one of the most pleasant experiences you've had in promoting a film. You are neither in it.
That's right.
And you're not picking a fight.
That's right, exactly. Yeah, for once, it was great. We were doing interviews, and there were other people in the film, other cast members that let them go talk to everybody, and I get to just kick back a little. It was good.
Was it always part of the plan that you wouldn't be in it?
Well, when we first got the idea to make a film about Comic-Con, you know, I was like, there's so many better people to follow into this. So many people who are, you know, I love it, but there's people who are even more passionate about, you know, than I am about the con. So I said, let's follow those folks.
What I like about comics is that, aside from the fact that it's not the, you know, it's entertaining, gets kids to read. Yeah. But comics are always your first introduction to morality plays.
That's right.
You know.
That's right. No, there's always the stories of good versus evil, of triumph, of personal dilemmas. You know, trying to just deal with your own demons. I mean, I think those are what draw people to these stories.
And what does it say about our culture today? You know, as you see them reflected in the modern comics.
Well, I think that when you look at the comics, there is still this idea of perfection that's still held up within comics. This idea of being a better person, of creating a better society, of trying to do right. I mean, there's a tremendous sense of right, I think, that exists within comics and graphic novels that was inherent then and still is today.
You think it's doing the children a disservice to teach them that? Because when they get to the real world, it's just not there.
Then they're all screwed.
Yeah, it's just not there.
Shit, it's all a dream. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You're not Wolverine. You know, Wolverine's conflicted, but differently than you are.
Much different. Yeah, much different.
Why did you make this film?
You know, I love comics. I grew up as a kid loving comic books, and when I was in, I was in San Diego a few years ago doing the Simpsons 20th anniversary special for Fox, and I was like, this is a movie. This place is a movie. You know, you see, there was a guy who came in while we were shooting for The Simpsons, who came in to profess his love of The Simpsons, and he had painted himself head to toe with liquid latex, red liquid latex. And so when it dries to your body, it basically becomes this red latex suit.
Has he not seen Goldfinger?
Yeah,
you die like that.
So he came in this suit, and he was basically Carnage. He had created Carnage from the comic books. And he's like, and you gotta understand how much I love The Simpsons, and here's why it's great. And I was like, this guy's a movie. This is a movie, you know? And so he was kind of the inspiration for us wanting to do it.
You know, when we were growing up, the Cold War was there, right? And it played a big role in those films. You can actually see it even with the new Captain America film. There's an element of that.
Yeah.
What do you do in this culture when these kids grow up? We're in 10 years since 9/11. So these kids grew up and they saw the World Trade Center fall. These kids saw two profoundly unsuccessful wars. Yeah. The hunt for bin Laden, the ultimate get. Like, it's just a different culture. They've seen different things.
It's different, but I think that there's still stories, and there's still these kind of there's still these themes of freedom, of what we question, of authority that run through these comic books and these comic book stories. there was this incredible thread that ran for a year called Civil War, which was literally about the government wanting superheroes to give up their secret identities, and it was about, there were people who said, we'll tell you our secret identity, and there was another group that went all rogue and said, we're not going to tell you ours at all, and it created all this conflict. Yeah. Such a great story that was rooted in everything that was happening in America at the time, and the fact that they were playing that out over weeks and weeks and weeks in a comic book series was brilliant, and it was great, and it got so many kids engaged in a much deeper conversation. So I think there's the ability to have something much larger happen through comics and these comic book stories that I think is imperative.
The other thing that's really amazing about Comic-Con, and take it away, even if you've got kids or you're not really into this.
Yeah.
It's a place for a kid who doesn't feel like he or she belongs.
Yeah.
Because of whatever they're feeling,
right?
To belong.
To belong, and I think not just because people have this image of Comic-Con as just being it's smelly guys from their parents' basements in costumes, you know, and there are some of those guys there.
Lots.
There's some of those guys are there, but there's also something much bigger than that, you know, of people who, like you said, who are passionate about something, who care about something. You know, there's people who work as bankers all year long who go to Comic-Con. There's people who are ministers there was a guy who was the minister of a church that we interviewed for the film who goes to Comic-Con and, you know, and is a Trekkie and loves it for what for a place where he can kind of be himself. You know, I think that, you know, there's so much of that I love about the film, and I don't think it's any different, you know, the people who go there or dress up or, you know, are passionate about something. There's no difference between them and the guy who paints his face and takes off his shirt and paints touchdown on his chest at a football game.
Right.
You know, they are the same people who just have passion for two different things.
I remember, you know, I was at Comic-Con once, and you know, there's a rickshaw driving through any city, and that person's either a tourist or they're going to work.
That's right.
And so there was someone pulling a rickshaw, and by themselves, the passenger was Chewbacca. And
Only at Comic-Con.
Only Comic-Con.
Only
no,
Comic-Con.
But what I couldn't determine was whether that was a fan or an employee, right?
Yeah,
and
right.
I thought to myself, in the San Diego heat on a Saturday afternoon, Chewbacca, that is either the worst day of that guy's life or the best day of that guy's life.
That's right. Yeah, it's probably the best. I think it's probably the latter. He's in that suit. He's like, oh my God, I'm so hot, but this is awesome. This is the best day ever.
So great. I looked at him and I thought, well, there's part of me that feels sorry for you, but the other part is you're Chewbacca.
That's it. You're Chewbacca. How cool is that?
That's so cool.
Best day ever. Yeah.
Dude, you did that so well, I'm starting to think you were the guy.
That's right, exactly.
And the rickshaw. Was that, you had been to Comic-Con, what was your relationship with that before?
I'd been to conventions before, but I'd never been to San Diego Comic-Con. Like, that is the mecca of pop culture, the mecca of geekdom. You know, 150,000 people go to this convention over 4 days. It's huge. And so when I got the call for The Simpsons, you know, when we got the call to do that special, I was like, we're going to Comic-Con. We're going there immediately. That was the very first thing we booked. And it was there that when we were there shooting that I saw the guy in the Carnage outfit. Later that night, I met Stan Lee. Yep. And I said to Stan, I said, Mr. Lee, you got to understand, as a kid growing up, you changed my life. Reading your comics, you know, gave me the courage to want to tell stories. It made me. Did you mean
that, or did you say it because it was Stan Lee and you had to say something?
No, dude, it's like literally, it's like I remember as a kid, like reading the Stan Lee comics, watching him as, you know, on the Electric Company when he voiced Spider-Man on the Electric Company, and like it was the narrator. I mean, he really had an impact on me, and he goes, oh my God, Morgan, thank you. You know, we should make a movie together. We should do a documentary. We should do a documentary about Comic-Con. And I was like, yes, we should. Great to meet you. And then, like, literally a year later, there we were making a movie with Stan Lee, Joss Whedon, you know, Thomas Tull, the CEO of Legendary Pictures, and Harry Knowles, the ultimate fanboy, as our producers. I mean, it was amazing.
What did you get from comics that you couldn't get from your friends or family, like life lessons?
Everything.
Really? I thought you had a supportive family. What do you mean everything?
Yeah, no, my parents were so great. I think that comics just gave you, as a kid, and especially as a geeky, creative kid, you know, they do give you a sense of escape. They give you a sense of, I think, of purpose, of an identity that you can somewhat, you know, latch onto. And for me, I just loved the stories. You know, I was always writing for so young, as long as I can remember. When I was like 7 or 8 years old, I was writing stories and drawing pictures around them and making my own kind of comics and stories. And yeah, so for me, I mean, it was just this thing that I was so passionate about.
Where did you learn to ask questions? Where did the idea of being a questioner come from?
My mom, and she hates me for it every day. She hates it. She hates it because, like, I was that kid. She's like, you can't tell it. Why? Because I say, why? Like, and she was one. She always encouraged me to ask questions, to be inquisitive, to push back on things that people, you know, say you should or shouldn't do. So then, as you get a little older and you get more rebellious, as I was a teenager, she was a little more unhappy that was the kid that she raised. But I think she's happier about it now.
You know, after the Super Size Me craze, it's really easy to get caught up in your own momentum and, you know, for lack of a better phrase, caught up by your own bullshit.
Yeah.
And you think you're doing more important work than you are, or whatever it is. Did you feel you were in that stage?
Well, I mean, I think I'm really proud of what we do, and I feel very fortunate to get to do what I do. But I think the key in those moments is to surround yourself with no men. Like, you can easily surround yourself with yes men, like, you're the greatest, Morgan. You keep on up the good work, you know. But I surround myself with people at my company and my friends who are like, you're a jerk. Don't be an asshole. You know, so that idea is terrible. We're not making that idea.
I have that same reality, right?
Yeah, but I think that's important because it keeps you grounded. And you know, some of my closest friends are friends that I had long before Super Size Me. I mean, my best friend is a guy that I've known since I was 5 years old. Like, the fact that he and I are still so close is an amazing thing. Yeah,
but also you don't know everything, and you have to recognize that there are a lot of people.
No, I know everything.
You know everything.
Yeah, no.
All right, what did you think when you found out they got Bin Laden?
You know, it was one of those you couldn't help but feel good that there was some closure, you know, but then you start seeing all the celebrations on television, you couldn't help but, you know, have a little sinking feeling in your stomach because, you know, as Obama said, you know, talking about the shootings of, you know, that there's no reason to spike the football, and you couldn't help but get a sense of, you know, I'm glad it happened, and I'm glad that, you know, that we found them, but at the same time, to see that celebration was hard.
What was that experience like, making that picture?
I mean, for me, it was. I mean, I was sitting on my couch when I got the news, and it was one of those. I thought they'd gotten Gaddafi. When people were like, big news coming up from the White House, I was like, oh, they found Gaddafi. This is it. And no one expected that it was going to be Bin Laden, and that was going to be the story. And I think it sends a great message, though. I think it sends an important message to anyone who wants to commit an act of terrorism that at some point you'll get caught. At some point you'll be found.
You know, there's a lot of people who even talk about they didn't see the body, so they didn't believe it. So jumping off that, what do you think is the biggest lie we're being told now?
What's the biggest lie we're being told now? Fast food's good for you. Go ahead, eat more. Yeah.
The casinos is no longer good for you. You did that.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly. The biggest lie, gosh, that's a great question. That the American government works for its people. It's hard right now with everything that's happening in the United States to kind of see the turmoil that's happening within my government, because it's become such a corporate-centric, you know, financially, you know, financial behemoth. It's become a business. Yeah. It's like government Inc., you know, versus, you know, government by and for the people.
Incredibly unsuccessul bank at the moment.
That's a very bad bank. It's a bad bank.
I mean, you grew up in a pretty conservative spot, right? Is that why you think a lot of your targets tend to be, you know, those institutions, conservative institutions, or the right?
Well, I think that it's good to push up. It's good to push against things that have so much power. I think you have to really rail against things that have power, and especially corporations, which now we've given all the power of an individual, yet with none of the repercussions of an individual.
There's no real jail anymore.
There's no real jail for a company, and even the people who commit the crimes within those corporations, very few of them go to jail, even once they're caught. I mean, it's you have to question that type of authority.
Well, so there's no reason to think this is going to get better, is there?
It's, as my mom used to always say, my mother, who from the time I was a kid, you know, every silver lining has a cloud. You know, that's my mom. You know, so my mother would have.
That shines some light on why you are the way you are.
Exactly. My mother would always say, it's only going to get worse. That's it. Yeah.
All right, stick around. We'll find out what he thinks is the Citizen Kane of sci-fi nerd movies. We'll do some anthropology with Morgan Spurlock right after this.
Thank you.
As you can probably tell, we have a live studio audience. I'd love it if you would join us. Go to strombo.com/tickets for more.
You come to jail and you got no privacy. You're in your room and there's 2 other people in there, sometimes 3 other people. You got to take a shower in the middle of this room, in the day room, in front of everybody. This is going to be rough.
Back with Morgan Spurlock, 23 days in jail.
Yeah, when I did that episode of the show, there was a in my day room in the cell block that I was in, there was a transvestite named Monica, who every time I go take a shower, Monica would say, "Now Morgan, you just let me know if you need help washing your back." Nice. And I'd be like, "I think my back's all right." Yeah.
But after 23 days, did you start to consider Monica as a possibility?
Absolutely. Monica got better looking every day. Yeah.
Which was more difficult, spending 23 days in jail or vegan diet?
Jail's ultimately worse. You know, it's like I'll eat vegan food all day long versus going to jail.
But you knew you were getting out, so did you feel like you were? I wondered if you felt at any moment like it was not exploited, I don't know what the right word is, but those guys who were stuck in that jail, you were going through an exercise, and this is where they were stuck.
Yeah, and the fact that, you know, I knew I was getting out. So, of course, you know, I know that there's an end game, you know, and there's guys in there who their end game is a year from now, 2 years from now, some of those guys 5 years from then. It's different, but you do start to even feel the impact. Like, for the time that I was in there, you get so sensitized to the world that even right when I came out, like, you're overtaken by the noise and by the people. I can't even imagine by guys who are, like, having to spend, you know, a year in solitary, and then they get out of jail. It's like, it's the worst thing ever.
What would you do with 30 days completely to yourself with no responsibilities?
Oh my God, that's like a dream come true. 30 days to myself with no responsibilities. I would go with my family to some like beach on some island in, like, you know, the Caribbean or Costa Rica or somewhere, just where I could spend time with them and hang out. Because that's the time that I get to spend with my family is so valuable to me now. And you know, my mother's birthday is next year. She's going to turn 70. So for me, it's, you know, like, I want to be around those people as much as I can.
70 is still young, but do you start thinking about what's going to happen when your mother passes?
Yeah, and well, I think about it, like, I just lost my grandfather, my other grandmother last year, so I have one grandmother left. Like, I've lost all my other grandparents, and so you do start to have a real sense of mortality, and especially having a kid. After I had my son, it gives you a much different sense of mortality, because suddenly you're not the most important person in the world. Yeah. There's somebody that infinitely matters more than anything else on this planet, and it becomes hard. Yeah, so you do start thinking about that. I was literally just thinking about my mom the other day, and it's yeah, I can't imagine not having her in my life.
You the kind of guy that talks to her and tells her how you feel? Are you guys going to regret it in 5 years after she...
No, I mean, I pretty much tell her, I mean, I've had a real great open relationship, you know, with my mom, talking about our feelings, talking about, you know, my dreams. I remember sitting as a kid being, you know, sad and crying in my mom's room when I was, like, so fed up with being in school when I was like 15, 16 years old, and all I wanted to do was go out into the world. And she was like, it's, you know, it's going to just, you know, be calm. You're going to get out of here. It's going to be fine.
You just walked your kid to school for his first day of school this year.
I did.
Did any of what your mother told you come out of you?
I mean, the biggest thing is I try to instill in my son confidence, you know, to be his own person, to have his own voice, you know, which my mom really tried to do for me. You know, I was walking him into school, and he was a little nervous when he got there, and then when he saw the other kids and met the teacher, he felt a little better. Yeah. And we start walking inside, and I could see his eyes widen up, and I was like, "Are you excited?" And he goes, "Daddy, this is going to be huge." And the minute I was like, "Oh, that's my boy."
Nice. Okay, what's the Citizen Kane of the sci-fi nerd movies?
The Citizen Kane. Well, you could go to if you're going in terms of, like, cinematic perfection. I'm a Star Wars kid. It's Star Wars, the first Star Wars.
What's the biggest fear facing in the world right now?
Education. Yeah, it's like, especially now that my kids just started school. It's, you know, when I see what's happening to the education system in the United States, it's like I worry about the next generation of kids.
Are you a better filmmaker now than you used to be?
Absolutely.
How do you deal with the criticism when people would say that your other work was either oversimplistic or just, you know, was
well,
just...
they're stupid. Yeah. No, it's you know, I think that what I try to do with my films, I try to make them as accessible as possible. You know, I'm a real believer that if you can make someone laugh, you can make someone listen. Yeah. And so through my films, I try to make them entertaining, engaging. You know, I want to give you medicine, but I want it to taste like cotton candy. Right. And so that way when you go home, you're like, this is delicious. And then next thing you know, it'll affect you.
But how do you create the cotton candy that doesn't ultimately rot your teeth?
Well, I have very special cotton candy that also has fluoride in it.
Oh, nice. Yeah. All right. It's really nice to see you again, man.
Great to see you, man. Thank you so much. Pleasure. Thank you.
Comic-Con, episode 4, as the fans hope. Morgan Spurlock made it. We'll be right back. Okay.